By 1933, the arrival of sound had bolted the cinematic camera to the floor. The heavy, mechanical equipment required to record audio forced productions onto tightly controlled sound stages, creating a rigid, highly conventional style of filmmaking. Audiences absorbed these polished, stage-bound productions in grand commercial theater palaces, wrapped in an atmosphere of polite respectability. Jean Vigo had no interest in respectability. The 29-year-old director was the son of a notorious exiled anarchist. He channeled the bitter memories of his own upbringing into a brief, explosive 44-minute film called Zero for Conduct. The setting is a grim, severely structured boys' boarding school, designed by its adult administrators to systematically crush the independence of the young mind. Beneath the quiet surface of the institution, Vigo tracks the gathering storm of a student rebellion, building pressure against a grotesque gallery of authority figures. To capture the raw, untamed energy of a playground revolt, Vigo recognized that the polite conventions of contemporary filmmaking would fail. He needed an entirely different visual vocabulary. He found his perfect collaborator in visionary cinematographer Boris Kaufman, the brother of the pioneering Soviet documentarian Dziga Vertov. Together, Vigo and Kaufman deliberately rejected the locked-down camera setups demanded by early sound studios. This illustrates their dynamic approach. They built an intricate rhythm, utilizing three-quarter overhead camera angles mounted on physical tracks. Rather than observing statically, the camera moves fluidly alongside the children. This erratic motion embedded anti-authoritarianism directly into the structural frame. Their rejection of convention extended to the cast. Vigo refused to hire trained, polite child actors who would merely pantomime misbehavior. He went directly to the working-class streets of Paris, recruiting genuine local ruffians to populate his fictional boarding school. Decades before the movement had a name, this proto-neo-realist casting choice injected the narrative with an unpolished, abrasive edge. When paired with Kaufman's restless camera work, the on-screen anarchy felt entirely real, deeply shocking traditional audiences who were accustomed to artificial studio polish. The film's structural defiance peaks in its most famous sequence, the midnight dormitory pillow fight. As white feathers float downward through the darkness, the boys march in their nightshirts, rendered by the camera as a triumphant angelic army of liberation. To match this visual poetry, Vigo tasked composer Maurice Jaubert with creating a suitably surreal musical accompaniment. Jaubert devised a complex experiment. The orchestra played the notes in reverse order onto tape. He then physically flipped the tape. The melody plays correctly, but the instrument's attack and decay are inverted, producing an otherworldly sound. This brilliant inversion anticipated the tape manipulation techniques of the avant-garde music movements by more than a decade. The rebellion inevitably spills out of the dormitory. In the film's climax, the children barricade themselves on the roof, pelting an assembly of cardboard dummy dignitaries with cans and trash. Vigo's script ruthlessly targets systemic cruelty. The adult administrators are portrayed as corrupt, rigid, and ultimately absurd, led by a literal dwarf hiding behind a pompous top hat. The French government instantly recognized the danger of these images. In October of 1933, the French Film Control Board declared Zero for Conduct seditious and aggressively anti-French, issuing an absolute ban on its release. The film was locked away in state vaults, completely hidden from commercial screens for 11 long years, until the liberation of France in 1945. Vigo died of tuberculosis just a year after the ban, but his exiled film eventually found its audience. By the late 1950s, the young critics of the emerging French New Wave studied his work, adopting him as their spiritual ancestor. Director François Truffaut directly paid homage to Vigo's genius in his own debut, The 400 Blows, meticulously copying his visual observations of children evading authority in the city streets. Decades later, the film's precise DNA surfaced again in the surreal institutional rebellion of Lindsay Anderson's British classic, If. He only lived to the age of 29, but Jean Vigo successfully proved that cinema could operate as a weapon, a dream, and an act of pure, beautiful sabotage. This was brought to you by Stalzer Circle. Thank you for listening.